Hello and welcome to DDOCast, episode 443, recorded live on Saturday, September 3rd. I'm your host, Jerry Snook, aka Cordovan, community manager for Dungeons & Dragons Online. This week's screenshot, oh no, Nervegen? That's how I've always said it, is Nervegen. Views de lure in our 248th DDO screenshot of the week. We'd like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website, DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by the fine Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, cyberears.com. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend. Stay tuned by following us on social media or the website, DDOcast.com. There is also a calendar there that you can use. On the podcast this week, we've got Asheras. How you doing, Asheras?
Good. Thanks for having me.
BonnieBew is here. How you doing, Bonnie?
Great. Greetings and salutations.
And finally, the guy who should be talking instead of me, Patrick.
I don't know. I kind of like it when someone else does the intro.
Nice.
There's less things for me to worry about.
For those who don't know, BonnieBew.com, twitch.tv/BonnieBew, Tribe Called Zerg from Canath, Asheras, Lava Divers on Kyber, that's Urine Patrick's guild, and you guys have been around a long time. Well familiar with the Lava Diver's name on Kyber. Any other plugs we want to get out of the way? All right, today's a debate. Each guest will be given the opportunity to give an opening statement in a rotating order. Arguments should be creative, passionate, amusing, and factual, but they should not be mean. Yes, we are doing a debate episode. This week we'll also have a little bit of the latest news, of which there should be some. If not, I will make some by the end of the show. Arguments should be creative, passionate, amusing, factual. They should not be mean. Counterpoints are encouraged and interruptions allowed at the moderator's discretion. If all guests choose to debate the same point, a troll will be chosen to argue a different point. Points are arbitrary. We may not even do points. The winner at the end gets nothing.
Yay!
The topic of the week is these are topics that Severlin has brought up as he would like to look at doing in the future. We wanted to explore them a bit more and help him out. Very interesting. All right, so let's get started. Should PC, that would be if you are playing them, Tieflings, have horns and tails? We're going to start with you, Asheras.
I think that Tieflings should have horns, definitely. I think that we've seen that with some of the other races, and I think that's great. I don't think they necessarily need to show through the helmet. If that's a major issue and it's going to slow down or possibly eliminate the ability to have Tieflings overall, I'd rather have the class and not have the horns show through the helmets than not have them at all. And I feel the same way about the tail. The tail is nice and all, but we don't have cloaks. We're not really big on what's going on back there, so the tail is optional for me. I'd be fine with it being there, but again, you know, if it's something that slows down our ability to get Tieflings, I could pass on it.
All right. Bonnie, what do you think?
Tieflings. I don't really like Tieflings. I like save whatever disdain I have after I'm done killing elves to hate on Tieflings. So I don't have a strong feel, but then I think about gnomes and how I had all my visual dreams fulfilled with gnomes. So I feel like a bad person if I don't say Tieflings should have the same number of development hours in their graphics that gnomes got, at least. So if that means they get horns and a tail to that number of development hours, then let them have horns and a tail. Tails, I think, are a rare feature in Tieflings. That horns are a given, but tails are something that don't necessarily have to appear with a Tiefling's cosmetic. So I say those are throwaway. And if it's a matter of hours, I think a good compromise would be making something, if it's a question of making every helmet show horns, well, why not on an iconic Tiefling give a cosmetic? So there's one helmet that has the horns, and a character can wear that cosmetic to give themselves horns. And there's one set of armor that has a tail, and if a character wants a tail, they can wear that cosmetic, and then it's like a compromise between the two.
Okie dokie. Interesting. Patrick.
I think it's inconsequential. I think we're asking the wrong question, which is funny because I actually wrote the question. No, so here's the thing: horns and tails are fun. Okay, sure, but it's two more things that I have to decide on at character creation. There's already a nice long list of things that I go through, and my characters that I really play, I care about, and it already takes me like 10 minutes to figure out what the character is supposed to look like and what I want them to look like every time I do a reincarnation. Adding two more options to that, oh my gosh, that's even more things to worry about. And the tail and the horns and getting it to match everything else, and yeah, I don't need all that. And time is a consideration, but really, it doesn't actually. It's not going to impact my enjoyment of a race as something to play with, right? Like, what is the race going to do? What are the stats going to be? What kind of a racial trait is it going to be? Those are things I think are more important than horns and tails and whatever.
I would say that tails have that potential because we're always looking at our characters as they run. The tails might actually have more of a visual impact of what we see in the game as a new race than horns would, because we're always looking at the rear end.
Well, here's something we could do. Instead of doing tails, do something for everybody. Implement cloaks, because the cloak would hide the tail. Then you don't have to worry about it. And everyone, no matter what race, would love to have cloaks. I would.
What if I don't want my character to have a cloak?
Well, you can turn it off, just like you can turn off the helm and the goggles.
But then I need to see the tail. No, I don't care.
I'm with you. I feel like the stats are the more important part of any race, more so than the visuals. But I know that there's a huge segment of the population who likes the visuals, and I definitely enjoy it to some degree.
And that's why I make the gnome argument. I'm like, I got my dream of something that's so cute that I just want to pinch their cheeks till their nose pop. But I think other people, if it's their dream race, that they should at least have that much fulfillment. So I want to argue for equal time. And do what you can visually to try to make that race as interesting as possible to look at visually, but don't sacrifice it, say, compared to its playability or mechanics of the racial tree or something like that.
Now, if we can get like an extra gear slot, like the tail gear slot, like you put a ring on the tail, or the tail can swing a weapon or something, then I'm on board, right?
10 rings for everybody.
Prehensile tail, I like it.
Yeah,
it's like Nightcrawler from the X-Men.
I could get on board with that. That'd be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, okay, so those are a lot of really good points. I think the big issue with horns and tails is that I think you've captured it perfectly, that we have a bit of a dichotomy between how, as knowledgeable DDO players, we know it would be fine basically not to have horns and tails, and we could either live with it or perhaps just be like, yeah, it's fine. Even in Eberron, some of our tieflings don't have tails. But I think the reality of DDO being a licensed and official Dungeons and Dragons product, that when we're building a race should at the very least be largely setting agnostic. I mean, if we can get away with it on Eberron, that doesn't mean we can get away with it throughout the game. The other thing is that if we're going to do tieflings, we want to do them right. We wouldn't want the experience to be, oh, awesome, tieflings, except they don't have horns and tails. That kind of thing. And we know as active DDO players that that's fine, basically, or could be fine for many of us, At least would be fine enough for enough people that it's probably okay, right? If we had to. And the reality of us not being willing to make that kind of sacrifice for our game and sort of our implementation of the Dungeons and Dragons universe. So, when you say, should they have tails, I guess the question you almost need to ask is, if they do not have tails and horns, what would I really be okay with it?
Well, on the topic of horns, first of all, I mean, they can have the horns. The question really is, do they show through the helmet, right?
Yeah, it's a clipping issue largely.
Yeah, and you always have the ability to turn your helmet off so that you're not wearing it. So if you really like the horns a lot, you like that visual aspect, you could always just choose to not show your helmet. Do Blade Forged hide their spikes when they wear helmets?
I think they do, except
Yeah.
for when they're wearing the mushroom cap. Blade Forge, when they're wearing the mushroom cap from Temple of Elemental Evil, they look exactly like a Blade Forge should, because something with blades all over their head, if they stick a mushroom cap on top of their head, it probably should look like there are swords sticking out of the mushroom, which I think that's perfectly as I expect, but it isn't totally consistent.
Here's the thing,
So-
like, I think about this and, like, okay, cosmetics are cool, but the only time I think most players look at things like tusks and facial hair and scars and all these things that are available on character creation is when they're actually creating the character. You look at, Bonnie said it earlier, right? You look from the back, right, as the player of that avatar. And most people, like, how many times, honestly, have you actually gone up to a random character, someone was actually playing, and actually looked at their cosmetic choices, right? Like,
Yeah, I do think about
that.
mine a fair amount, though.
I do.
I think about my personal choices a lot.
I notice the armor a lot, but you're right. I mean, not the facial features.
But then
I don't
Maybe
think, well, I gotta
occasionally
have
you'll
eyes.
notice it, but I mean,
there's
I
also
don't.
that underlying aspect where, okay, so as players maybe don't care, but like, say, Turbine as a business, if they're going to make a new race, they need something to market when they release it. And so it does need to be visually distinct from what we already have in the game. So I can see where there's got to be a certain amount of horns and tails to put sizzle in the steak and to put them out there so that people get excited about this new race. They have something visual to connect to. And that's not as important once you've been playing your tiefling for like 10 hours and you've gotten used to the way that your rear end looks, or you've gotten through the character creation screen and you've had that first burst of like, oh wow, amazement, this is my new tiefling and it's the first one I'm making and it's awesome. That those go away, but there still has to be something that generates excitement that encourages people to try them who aren't just looking for that iconic past life.
All right, I'm going to award this to Bonnie. I think you've raised a lot of really good points. I also liked about, in your opening statement, how you talked a little bit about ways that you could perhaps deal with that. And I think it was a very knowledgeable insight as to how, the Dungeons & Dragons online character works. You had mentioned things like maybe having it as like a head slot or item slot, that kind of thing. I also like your suggestion, Asheras, about cloaks. Cloaks would... not only be part of the solution because it would allow you to kind of cover them to some extent, help cover some of the imperfections perhaps, like some of the clipping imperfections, but it would also, probably the technology used to bring cloaks to the game might well intersect with the technology that would be used to actually put a tail, like a swinging tail on a creature in a real environment. So
Think about the logos you could have on those cloaks too. You could do some really neat stuff with that.
Yep.
Actually,
All right.
Cleavebeard's talking about games making bank on selling cosmetic looks. You could tail and horn jewelry could become a thing.
Yeah.
Guilds could have logos on their
I mean,
clothes.
I've spent
Oh
money
gosh,
on,
that'd be so cool. Yeah.
I spent money on the glowing eyes cosmetics, so I mean, I'm willing to do it because I want to like look at myself when I do look at myself that I have these infernal glowing eyes or something like that. It's worth it to me. So
The glowing eyes
I
are
know
cool. I
Some
will
people,
say.
it's
I
going
love
to be worth
I
it
do too.
for them.
Yeah, I've got the purple glowing eyes on my main mock duck.
I think mine are on my warlock right now, which would go really well with a tiefling with horns and tail, actually. But
Yeah, it sure would. All right, pitch kobolds as a player race. We're going to start with include the basics for the enhancement tree, iconic class, and past life. Bonnie, what do you think?
Oh man, do I have to?
Well, if you really want to skip it, we could have someone else go first if you want some time to think.
I have a pitch, but I mean, in the grand scheme of like dragon, reptilian races, I think Yuan Ti are more an interesting look and everything. And kobolds are awesome because of their voices. And as a player character, I don't think you have to make believe the voice. I mean, that's their selling tactic. Is like the kobold workers union dealio. But if I have to make a kobold, I'd say the racial enhancement tree would have something like evasion at tier 2 and trap making at tier 3 and related recipes at tier 3 and higher, and maybe improved evasion at tier 5, almost as if kobolds were rogues without being the rogue class, because they're those little dodgy jerks who are always jumping around. I would also say they'd have an actual significant racial bonus to natural armor because of their dragon-like, hardened skin that would stack with other natural armor types that are in game. I'm not sure if +1 per core taken in the racial enhancement tree would be too little, or if giving up to +3 per racial tree tier would be too much. But I would make +1 natural armor racial bonus be the iconic past life bonus. I'd say the racial tree could also have obscuring mist or bane and curse SLAs, or a fire throwing weapon bonus effect that would mimic the kobold fighting strategies that we have in game already. I think they should be susceptible to light damage, because what are they doing out of the sewers anyhow? And I'd say the iconic class would be a sorcerer. And I pretty much don't see anything really pretty for the kobold ability stats. I'd give them a -4 strength, -2 con, but +4 dexterity. And if I had to do it, that's what I would do with kobolds.
I think the only one I didn't think I heard was a past life.
+1 natural armor.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, cool.
It'd be a racial natural armor bonus.
Nicely done. Patrick, you're next.
So I think we need to kind of try and keep it somewhat contained with DDO, right? We don't want to get too far away from what DDO is, because that's kind of what people want, is a DDO kobold. So first off, on the voices thing, I think we need player tricks. So you can, pets have tricks and they can do things. I think the players need to have in their kobold feats yark yark key, so that they can do those things. First, kobolds still hate you, those kind of things. I think we need to have on command that we can hotbar kind of a thing to do that. That's
oh my gosh.
So enhancement tree, I think I like
because that wouldn't be abused at all.
Yeah, right.
That would be awesome. It's like parrots. Yeah. It would be like a parrot. It'd be awesome.
I think I want to kind of latch on to what Severino was talking about, having them be, quote, possibly a hard mode, or kind of that kind of idea. So I think they actually have more minuses than they actually have pluses. So maybe they get a +2 to dexterity and maybe -2 to strength and -2 to intelligence or something along those lines. Charisma. Yeah. You lose stat points, right? That's the idea here with kobolds. But we're going to make up for it in the racial tree, which most racial trees only go up to tier 4. Mine's going to go up to tier 5 for kobolds. And we're really going to play on the draconic heritage of a kobold. So, going up the tree, you'll get a breath weapon, a low-use breath, kind of like Draconic Incarnation, but not quite as powerful, because we need to scale it down for heroics and stuff like that. We'll do that. And then, up at tier, that's probably a tier 5 thing with the breath weapon. But also I'm thinking +1 to caster level at tier 4 and 5. So you can kind of play on that draconic magical heritage kind of thing going on. Iconic class, I think we got to go shaman. I know we don't really have a, quote, shaman class, but I think we could, druid kind of already mixes arcane and, you could just do a druid, right? And have that be the, quote, shaman. But I think it'd be kind of nice to maybe give a little bit more, a couple of special spells, start with the druid. The wild shaping isn't really kind of what I was going for, but it's easier to start with the druid and then kind of throw them some extra bonus spells that they can get as they level. And as far as the past life goes, I think the passive one. What do we all know about kobolds? It's got to be jumping. Some bonus +3 to jump, and plus something to maybe +1 to balance on top of that. But the active feat, the one that you actually get to choose, because I'm pitching here a harder, a less durable character, right? So we want the past life to actually be something good. So for the one that you actually would take as a feat, +1 to caster level for everything.
Cool. Very, very cool. And finally, Asheras. Or Asheras.
Okay, well, I'll start off on record as saying I'm very opposed to kobolds, don't like them, I'm not interested in them in game. But since we're going to talk about them, I'll do my best here. I think that I agree that the stats should be a net negative. They're basically the anti-drow. They should have negatives to strength, negatives to intelligence, negatives to charisma, and probably just a plus to dexterity is all I would see there. As far as their enhancement tree goes, I would like to see, playing up on their high dexterity aspect of things, maybe some bonuses to dodge in there, which I think also should be their past life would be just a +1 to dodge, somewhat similar to the Shadark Eye. But their shiftiness and their ability to evade would be important, and I would probably play up on all of that. I think the magical aspect of them too, being a draconic race, maybe having some MRR in their tree as well. And then also some toughened hide sort of things would be fine. But I definitely think they should be a hard-to-play race, one that challenges. One thing I would like to see is some sort of enhancement that would get a bonus to XP earned when you use an autos box, because I would definitely want to speed through these lives from my past lives. So anything that would help that. And, if you come out with a player kobold race, one thing that would be beneficial is I would buy several autos boxes, 2 per life. Guaranteed, just to get through them.
All right, put Asheras down for a no on the kobold race.
That's good, though. It gives us a nice variety, right?
Yeah.
The only way I'm ever going to play kobolds is if they have a decent, iconic past life. Same thing for tieflings, basically. I got my gnomes, so I don't care about any other race that exists in all of the planes.
Nice.
I will say that for my, I want to pitch for the iconic version of mine. Up at tier 5, they'll have, and my racial tier 5 excludes you from doing your class tier 5s because it's a tier 5 enhancement. But there's because we're going to be iconic shaman, right? And we're going to be kind of a little bit of druid flavor. Shapeshift into a dragon for appear for kind of like a barbarian rage kind of thing.
Overpowered.
Shapeshift into a dragon,
Nerf,
and then you can
nerf
hover
kobolds.
and shoot fire and do all sorts of your main attack becomes a fireball or some sort of attack like that.
If this was a Dragonborn class, I would be all about playing it and doing that exact thing. But it's a kobold. We already have 2 small, wimpy races that aren't heroic in gnomes and halflings. Come on, do we really need a third?
Oh,
And
ouch! Them's fighting words,
We
man.
already have so much cute. I kind of agree. I think we have our required amount of cute. Let's have lizardmen or Yuan-Ti first. If we have to have something reptilian or dragon-like or something sneaky or whatever, we can have poison breath on a Yuan-Ti. I don't know. Opportunity to have a larger race, so it's like that kind of a nice panorama of different character player race sizes and shapes.
Nobody wants to play a lizard man. Nobody wants that.
I play a lizard man before I played a kobolds.
People want to play kobolds, and then they want to. Kobolds are your first step into dragonborn and half dragons, and
Dragonborn are
you're right,
3.
yeah.
And frankly, I'd rather have goblins than
See, how about this?
would-
What if
Everything.
if you had a past life of kobold, then in your character creation screen you had an option of being whatever your normal race is, and then being half dragon on top of that, right? Like kobold unlocked that.
Oh, I
It's
just
like a
thought
cone of
what
shame,
my
okay?
active ability would be for kobold iconic past lives. It would be having a kobold cookie effect that you could use in challenges. So that you could summon a purple crystal, and it's like a three use thing, like purple dragon knights have 3 uses of their ability. That would be my
limited in
active.
use. It's interesting, but it's a little bit limited in use.
But very powerful for the use that it has.
I think that
crystals.
kobolds shouldn't be allowed to use hirelings either, because no one's going to listen to a kobold.
And when you eat, this kind of goes with what you were arguing for in terms of jump, Patrick. When you eat a kobold cookie, it also gives you that crazy jumping effect where you can jump sky high, and you kind of are feather folly too. So kobolds are looking more attractive with every word that comes out of my mouth, basically. I'm
All
talking
right.
myself into them.
All right, I'm going to split the win between Bonnie and Patrick again on this one. Bonnie, I think you had some really great ideas for your stats, your enhancements and that. Frankly, I think you approached it similar to the way the DDO team, may have sort of whiteboarded the thing. And Patrick, I think you also raised some really good points, both in what their challenges would be and sort of how they could be implemented in a realistic way into DDO. Asheras, you did the same thing, but I guess I just can't say you're all winners. So because you don't like kobolds, and that's wrong.
No, I don't. I'll take the
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah. All right. I'm just kidding. It's perfectly fine not to want the kobolds as a playable race. So, okay. Next question. Do we need psionics? What do you think, Patrick?
No, and no. So here's the problem with psionics is, granted, I haven't done a lot of playing with them in pen and paper, but my understanding of psionics is, I'm probably with science, what are they going to bring us that we don't already have? Because if it's supposed to be a limited number of uses to cast spells, or kind of similar spell to spells things, we have that. We have spellcasters that have a limited mana pool. So I don't know what it brings to the characters. And there's not a lot of role-playing. Again, I'm not a huge nerd when it comes to psionics, but my expectation of that would be to do things like telepathy and telekinesis and stuff like that, which you can't really do in DDO, right? Like, it's not... You could do that in pen and paper because you have a lot more freedom, but a game that... the game's not built to be able to support those kind of things. Maybe you can throw in a few places where you can read someone's mind, but how is it... I don't know, what does this kind of abilities bring to the game that we don't already have? I don't really think it does. At least not in terms of having like a serious class or a major thing. Maybe you could dabble in it with like a Destiny or something like that and have some similar things. But again, what's it bring that we don't already have?
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. Asheras, what do you think?
I think I would like the idea of psionics. I enjoyed psionics in the pencil and paper world when I dabbled with them. I think my difference would be I don't necessarily want to see it as a different race, or I'm sorry, a different class. I apologize, different class, because I feel like if it's a class, it's probably going to end up having some sort of usage pool, like a mana pool, and you're going to have very spell-like abilities, and it's really just going to feel like a different version of a spellcaster. If psionics was done, I'd like to see it done more the same way that dragon marks are done, in that there are feats you can take to make your character a psionic character, because it's more something that's an innate ability that they would have, and then have enhancement trees, maybe a Harper style separate enhancement tree that then enhances those feat based abilities to give you things you can do. And I would like to see them come up with unique things they can do that aren't already in the game. One example I could think of is going back to the Salvatore books. Camuriel is able to do this kinetic shield, and he puts it on various characters at various times, so they absorb damage, kind of like a stone skin sort of thing, but then that damage can then be repelled back offensively as well and get released. And something like that, I could see a lot of melee characters really being excited about having that ability and adding that to their defensive capability and offensive capability. And finding some unique things like that you could do would be great. But doing it such that a psionic could be a melee character, it could be a ranged character, it could be a caster, and then it's adding to the character's abilities in various ways. And that's something I could definitely be excited about.
Very cool. Bonnie, what do you think?
I think psionics are like ketchup. They should be used sparingly. But I could argue. I think psionics are a class where, yes, we need them in the sense that I think psionics are like a final frontier. They're like you could make a completely different spell book that is different than what exists in game, with some of the mind spells, with new, maybe different spell effects and animations. But I think if you're going to add psionics to the game, you have to go big or just forget about it. That it has to not be just a handful of little spells or little effects that get added to the game, but genuinely having new animations for doing things like a mind thrust or new animations for some kind of paralysis, and updating mind flayers to completely decimate you even more than they already do if you are a charisma-based character. And if you don't go full out and add a whole new stable of spells for psionics to use, then it's kind of meh. And they'll probably would be overpowered, because that's the thing with pen and paper psionics, is that they're kind of overpowered, at least when they, in like the 3.5 kind of world that is the roots of DDO. They're, just drop an anvil on an ant kind of thing, I guess. So, yes, we need them because it's a big, cool, new potential spell book. And, one of the spells they have would be Dragon Breath. That's weird. We were just talking about that. And stuff like that. So I think they could be cool. I think there's lots of room where you could be creative. There's lots of spells that are not available to other arcane casting groups or healing groups, and but it's pretty much a go big thing.
Don't we need you talk about adding a bunch of spells for psionics? Like the classes we have right now could use new spells. They have a fairly short list of spells, and there's such a wide canon of places where you can. I mean, 3rd edition, 4th edition. There's probably I'm assuming there's spells in 5th edition, although I haven't read a book for 5th edition yet. But there's such a rich history that we can enhance the stuff that we have now for all these classes when it comes to spells. Like how is a psionic character? It doesn't matter if they're like, I mean, I like the idea if you're going to add it as doing it similar to Dragon Marks, like Ash was saying, but functionally, how does it react and play in our game in DDO differently than spellcasting? And I don't see how it does.
Well, so that's the thing with the Dragon Mark sort of concept, with the enhancement concept. Now it's an and. If it's a new class, it's an or. I'm either a wizard or I'm a psionicist. I'm either a fighter or I'm a psionicist. And at that point, you're saying, okay, what does the psionic character do that the wizard or the sorc doesn't do? And the answer is that's going to be a little bit more limited. But if it's something that you can add in, the way you can add in a Dragon Mark or a Harpatry sort of thing, and then the psionic can be a rogue, and that can enhance their ability to be a rogue. It's building on your build options. And yet, from a power standpoint, you're limited because you only have so many AP to spend, you only have so many feats. So you're not necessarily increasing the power, you're just increasing the breadth of the options that we've got.
If we're going to add power to characters, I'd rather add a prestige enhancement thing that you, at a certain point in time, you start getting prestige. It doesn't replace action points, but another system where you could start taking spend 20 action points in prestige enhancements or something like that. If you wanted to flesh some stuff out like that a little bit more, I don't know. Psionics it seems overly complicated for not that much benefit.
All right, I am going to sort of take over this quickly to say, in our chat room, Wizenman mentioned something that's worth bringing up. There are some people in pen and paper Dungeons & Dragons in particular who very much do not like psionics. They actually, there is a I don't want to quantify a size, but there is a group of people out there who don't like psionics at all. On the flip side, one of the reasons where psionics even comes up in DDO is because they are often closely associated with the first question we asked, the Tiefling. The Scion is a core trait of the Tiefling. So if you're adding Tieflings, it makes sense in some ways to add psionics to the game. So let me go around the room here real quick and just have a one-word answer. Do we want psionics? Patrick?
No.
Asheras?
Yes.
Bonnie?
No.
Okay. There we go. In the interest of time, let's move on.
Is it just me, or is psionics you love it or you hate it in pen and paper? That's the sense I get. People either really like it or they don't like it at all.
Well, psionics are like tieflings for me. There's something I like as an NPC. I like mind flayers doing horrible things to me. But I don't like it when players can do that stuff back. I think having a player character being able to, feeble mind you and things like that sometimes isn't as exciting as when I'm up against a monster that can do that to me.
We can cast feeble mind, can't we?
Yes, we can.
Say.
But it's just
I
like
never do, but
yeah. But it's an example of when you're having, you know, when you run into a mind flayer and suddenly they're like draining your charisma and you might get murdered because suddenly you have no charisma and you're a charisma-based character and you die because of ability drain. To me, that's exciting. And but if I had that power to do it with the ability that a mind flayer has, it becomes boring and overpowered. So,
I'll say that our chat room is not exactly excited about Psionics either. I mean, it's a small cross section of players, but
NPCs, just like I like Tieflings as NPCs.
Yeah. Let's move on for let's do the fun question.
For time's sake, I did just want to give though a shout out, Asheras, to your comment about how you would implement it in DDO, which would be you would, I think, want it to be something that, you know, would benefit your existing class already. So you would be a rogue who would use psionics to your benefit. You would be a fighter who would use psionics to your benefit. So I think that would be, I think that would be the goal if we were to do something like that.
Yeah, I think that was actually a really good and a good balance, right? Because you can invest in psionics, but then you're taking away from what you already have in your character. So.
All right. Next question. What existing brand or franchise could DDO merge with? Asheras.
I think the one I'd like to see, and this isn't going to be a specific brand or franchise because it's not been defined yet, but whatever Warner Brothers is making the focus of the D&D movie that's coming out in a year or two would be the brand or franchise I'd want to see DDO merge with. I think that the synergy with that and the interest, the marketing that would come with that would be great for the game. And, you know, it could be something where it's a set of prequel content that leads into whatever the plot of the movie is, or it could be complementary content that's running parallel, similar to the way that you had the Spell Plague, and that plot line was resolved through interaction with Elminster and the Symbol and Mystra in a series of books. But a lot of other stories were going on simultaneously, both, you know, in pen and paper Dungeons and Dragons and also in other books that really didn't impact that main storyline, but were concurrent, and you felt like you were existing in that world with that storyline. And I think that would be the best place that DDO could go.
I love it. Bonnie, what do you think?
Kind of along those lines, I'm going to pick another Warner Brothers property. I'm going to say DC Universe, because then I can have a Wonder Woman cosmetic armor. And isn't that what's really important?
There you go.
I can be Wonder Woman. Woo!
Patrick?
First off, for Asheras, can we at least put a caveat that the movie has to be good before we touch that? Because the history of D&D movies is not exactly stellar.
I didn't see a Wayans brother on the couch yet.
I would have rather seen a D&D series, television series on like Netflix or something than a movie.
That'd be fun.
Character development.
So my choice, and I'm going to hang my hat on one thing for this choice, is How to Train Your Dragon. Because, dang it, I want to ride some dragons around DDO, because that would be awesome.
Awesome. I don't know if there could be a right or wrong here. I think they're all right. Again, I think that would be great. By the way, remind me after the show here, Bonnie. I've got a poster to show you. So,
okay.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do
it. I'll look at it.
Like,
yeah.
Why am I picturing Kobolds dressed as Wonder Woman?
Oh, dear.
Nice. I love it. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. And by the way, thanks everyone for doing a great job on the debate here with a speed round. This is kind of a Rorschach test. So essentially, first thing that comes into your head is perfectly fine. And these are 3 questions that we're just going to go around the room for ease of doing this. We're just going to go Asheras, Bonnie, Patrick on all of these, okay?
Asheras, whoever chimes in first.
So okay, yeah, that's fine too. That's fine.
Shoot it out, and after everyone says their answer, we'll give quick little, really short arguments. That's kind of what we're going for.
All right, speed round question 1. What spell does the most damage?
Does Energy Burst count?
It's a spell, isn't it?
I'm going Energy Burst.
Which spell does the most damage?
When's the last time I cast a spell?
Spells do damage?
It's just whatever. It can be interpreted however you want to interpret.
I'm gonna say
workloads.
Sunbolt.
So, Sunbolt? Yep. If someone said, "What's the most powerful spell in DDO?" Like, which one does the most damage?
Implosion's the most powerful spell.
Implosion will count. All right.
Good answer.
There you
Good
go.
answer. I like your answer.
All right, Bonnie, what was your answer?
I said Sunbolt.
Oh, yeah, Sunbolt. That's right. Okay. Question 2. What
Oh,
is
we gotta say why we chose ours.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Quick. Why'd you choose yours?
Energy burst does a lot of damage. You can pick what energy it does. It's a nice big burst. Little spell power get you a long ways.
Bonnie?
I gotta change my answer.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Yeah.
Greater Ruin. No.
Yeah, that was
I was thinking that too.
I don't know if that's really a spell though,
That's
but
a spell-like ability. But
It's just
I
it's more of a
chose
spell than
Sunbolt
energy burst.
because I didn't really have a good answer, and because I guess if you have light power and stuff and you crit on it, it's a big number.
all right. And why did you pick yours, Asheras?
Because I couldn't think of Greater Ruin at the time, and but
Exactly.
Implosion is my favorite spell, and it hits everything, including undead, everything except for red and purple bosses, and it's just devastating if you get the DC high enough.
When Implosion works, it's
yeah.
a cool thing.
I'm tempted to decide.
Plus, it has the best effect.
Yeah, Implosion does truly rule. Some other great contenders might be Wall of Fire, Divine Punishment, Disintegrate.
Arcane Pulse.
All right, question 2. What is the worst item in DDO?
Club of the Holy Flame.
I concede. That's a good answer. It's a really good answer.
I'm gonna say any armor that has owlbear parts on it.
Say the worst item in the game?
Yeah, what is the worst item in DDO?
The Docent from Mindsunder, because it's ugly.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's pink.
It's
a great
ugly.
item. The Quoforge Docent thing or whatever.
It's bulky. It's not very.
It's
I'm
pink.
sorry to the
It's
person who made
girl
this
docent.
armor, but it doesn't look that great, and it's pink.
It has its fans, that's for sure.
The heart
Yeah.
wants what it wants.
Yeah.
You know what's really nasty is that demon armor that comes out at Chronoscope. If you ever read the description on that, I almost couldn't
Yeah.
wear it just because of how icky it made me feel.
It's a little nasty. Yeah, that's one usually I slap a cosmetic on because yeah.
I think Asheras had the best answer, though. The Club of the Holy Fame is pretty. I mean, it's good. It does good damage. That's how it's going for.
Well, but it almost certainly could not be the worst item in DDO because there are people who, like first-time players, just people who find themselves in strange positions who actually can use it to good advantage in Delaras.
I think he's got the
Festival
right
play.
sentiment going, though.
Yeah. But okay, so final question. Oh, did anyone not get to say why they thought theirs was the worst? Okay. Question number 3. If you could make the entire DDO community read and understand one page on the DDO wiki, which page would you choose? If you could make the entire DDO community read and understand one page on the DDO wiki, which page would you choose? So essentially, nobody ever needs to look up what would be one possibility, or another possibility might be like, which is the one page you just want everybody to know?
Reincarnation.
I'm not sure I can pick a page.
Yeah. I gotta consult the wiki about that. I'm gonna ask the wiki what page everyone should read. Because the wiki knows all. If there's a page that has to do with shroud puzzles, that's the page I pick.
Sure.
Almost certainly there is, yeah.
You can say
That's
one
a
that
good
they
choice.
need to make, too, so it's not like... What do you got, Ash?
I don't know. I'm trying to think what one of the more frustrating questions is.
So I'll explain why I said mine.
Go
We're
ahead.
waiting for him. Reincarnation is such an integral part of the game. You don't have to reincarnate, but if you're not reincarnating, you're literally missing out on so many opportunities that you can do with your character, and the game is in a lot of ways actually built to encourage you to reincarnate, and also it's just throughout the game, right? Like people, they can't put out content fast enough for us to. You run out of content, so being able to reincarnate is. The thing with reincarnation though is it can be really daunting. People always have lots of questions about it because it's not the most straightforward thing in the world, and you can really mess up your character if you don't do it right.
Certainly a good choice. And Bonnie, what do you think?
I mean,
Shroud puzzles, no
I
more.
said shroud puzzles, but they could just read the shroud page too, because it's part 2 is also a factor. If everyone just understood like how part 2 of the shroud worked, and they had to sign a contract saying, yes, I read and understand how part 2 of the shroud works, that would also be a big deal to me.
Okay. There's no wrong answers. What do you think, Ash?
I don't know. I would probably think that I see a lot of confusion about how spell power works for casters in terms of how the different things stack and what stacks and what doesn't stack. But that only applies to casters. I mean, on the melee side,
in general.
Yeah, just stacking in general. I don't know if there's a page for that, but how things stack and how they don't stack would be really helpful, especially now we have quality, insightful, and enhancement bonuses. People get really confused.
All great answers. There's no wrong one because it can, it can be a personal pet peeve all the way up to a massive system. I think you're right, Patrick, that reincarnation certainly generates a lot of questions, and if everyone just had an innate understanding of the reincarnation process, that would clear up a lot of confusion in this game. So, but I also really like your question about stacking, because once you understand stacking, a lot of the mechanics of this game kind of fall into place, right?
You can avoid reincarnation. You can't avoid stacking.
Yeah, and I like yours about the Shroud, frankly, too, because your Shroud remains one of the most popular pieces of content in the game, and it's something that if you don't know the Shroud, imagine being in a position right now today where you don't know the Shroud. It's daunting, right? Or it can be daunting.
And being in the middle of it and having to explain the mechanics of it to someone who doesn't actually know, and then there's that like embarrassing, like, oh, really? I'm not supposed to kill whatever I can kill.
Yeah.
Well, and those puzzles are in the pit and in the Mass of the Underdark quest too.
Demon Web.
Yep. Understanding the light puzzle. You're ahead of the game for most of the puzzles in this game, frankly.
It's like once you understand how it works, you never have to go to a solver again. It just becomes this thing that there's no pressure, and I think that's a gift. If everybody had the chance to not have to worry about it, it'd be great.
I was personally going to go kind of more pet PV and just kind of like a personal want, and that would be the Menectaran Desert maps. So no one ever needs to know how to find their way around the Menectaran Desert.
But that's a hazing tactic, is getting people to go to the Chains of Flame for the first time.
There you go. But that was my pick. All right. I guess I should turn the show over back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, so thanks, Sherry. It was a fun debate, and I think we had some great discussion about some stuff that's really relevant and serious and stuff that's not so much. So thanks. And feel free, if you're listening to the show, comment, leave your own ideas and thoughts on these. These debate episodes are not about giving the right answers. It's about having an interesting and fun discussion about some of these questions. And also, if you have any ideas you'd like to hear us debate about some stuff, leave those in the comments as well, or send me an email at ddocast@gmail.com, or Twitter at DDOCast on Twitter as well. Always looking for more ideas to bring into these shows. We're going to get into game news, and there's a little bit here. Update 32 had its, I believe, third incarnation on Lemania this week. There was a question that came up that I saw that I think it was Jerry answered about Kenneth crafting guild amenity, which will remain unchanged and will work just fine with the new system. So basically, I'm assuming that anywhere you can find a Kenneth crafting altar, they're all going to be the same altars.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Should all work just fine.
Yep.
So update the third round of Lemania for update 32. Some of the new stuff from Lemania. They upped the XP from Secret of the Slaver's Stockade, polished some an end fight and assault on the area of slave lords, and overall, quest arc has had rewards added, and all the quests have been updated. Kenneth Crafting has a new tutorial. Is this referring to the one that's on the forums, or is this in the game?
No, this is in the game.
Okay.
You know, the one where you speak to the Warforged when you get into the crafting hall and that now tutorializes you on the new system rather than the old. That was one of the updates to the money. Yeah.
That would make sense. Marks of Silverflame and Marks of Yugoloth have been added as requirements. And you can, if I'm not mistaken, you can buy those if you have the favor. You don't just have to find them.
I'm making a note to myself to do that right as soon as this is over. Find out who has favor and buy marks.
Actually, you know what would be really neat to see is if they expanded that concept. It's probably too late to do that now, but we have Marks of Silverflame and Marks of the Yugoloth, but I mean, free agents, agents of Arganessen, would be. Purple Dragon Knight, Harper. I mean, those are all ones that would be beneficial. Particularly if you reincarnate and lose that favor, you might want to get it back so you can do some crafting. Because a lot of those don't have a lot of benefit to getting there.
The PDK 500 favor doesn't have anything yet, and the Gatekeeper's 200 is also missing a favor reward.
Yeah.
Take the note, Jerry. Take that to no worries. That'd be great.
So with Kenneth Crafting, the new Kenneth Crafting system, one of the key goals of it is that it does introduce a few new kind of ingredients and things to the mix, but it also intends to utilize this huge swath of collectibles and stuff that's just been added to the game over the past decade and finally make it useful. So I think rather than, say, creating new marks, we're more likely to, once we get released, say, okay, now what's left? And I bet the answer to that is still going to be some kind of list, and then it would be a matter of incorporating that, I think, into the Kenneth crafting system rather than creating, say, new marks.
That's fair.
Hey, Jerry, the with the new collectibles, I saw that they would be dropping based on a level range. The old epic stuff, like the Wizard King and that sort of thing, on the epic versions of those, are there collectible dispensers in those epic versions of those quests going to be dropping the new stuff?
Yes.
Or the old stuff at their old level? The new stuff? Okay.
It should be the new stuff. That is my understanding. Is there may be some pieces of content out there that need further updating, but the intention is to largely have that be the system going forward. So we're also adding, say, collectible nodes to a bunch of, like, say, Forgotten Realms quests and things like that.
Yay! So,
and some of that will roll out in the coming patches and updates, over time. But the goal is to try to basically catch as much of that as we can. So, but because we are looking at 10 years of game code here, there may be some places that kind of have work their own special way, and we may need to address some of that once we stumble across it.
So,
will there be new dispensaries, or are they going to use the same dispensaries like the backpack
same dispensaries, correct? Same dispensaries. Okay. It's as it states. There are basically schools, and I can't remember what the names of all of them are off the top of my head, but it's like arcane and lore and something else, and the things you click on, say the bookshelves or whatever, fall into one of those three categories, and then by level range, it's the level, and here's what you can get.
Ash kind of brought up an interesting point that Kaylee did, because it's going to be based on level. Is that the level of the quest when you're in it? Because,
yes.
If it's level 1 to 5, if you were on a level 5 quest on normal, it would still be level 5. So if you were on a level 5 quest on elite, it would be level 7. So it would thereby be giving the level 7 ingredients?
I believe I believe that's correct. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
But say with the static looting things, I would kind of assume they would be like the base level of the quest, just to make it easier for you guys. If it's a bookshelf kind of thing.
Yeah, I can double check with no worries on that next week, but I'm pretty sure that the CR of the dungeon just ups, so that would be the CR of the collectible nodes as well.
Yeah, I mean that's how chests work more or less.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Some other stuff that got added. Craftable rune arms are now able to be disjuncted and have shards added to them. I believe they work as trinkets, which is how they used to work as well. Light, medium, and heavy armor found in randomly generated loot can now appear with many appearances that existed prior to the removal in Update 14.
Yes!
And you can thank Steel Star at least in part, for finding a whole cache of
Yay!
disassociated and missing armors from a long time
Thank
ago.
you, Steel Star.
And so we saw that and we were like, yes! And so now we're able to bring that back in. So.
I am so excited. I can't believe how excited I was to read that one note.
Yeah.
Also,
completely out of proportion.
In a similar vein, something I'm excited for, hide armor once again appears in randomly generated loot.
Woo!
Yep.
And druids
For
rejoice.
Yeah. That's why we're doing it, right?
Yeah, that's beneficial.
In terms of stats and numbers, it's identical to scale mail.
But druids can wear it, which is kind of the key thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Let's see. Collectibles were added to the following dungeons, which was, I'm assuming, is not a comprehensive list because it was, or they are still doing more. But it was Devil's Details, Multitude of Menace, Palace of Stone, Precious Cargo, Study and Sable, and Tavern Brawl. I would think Study and Sable would have a lot of options for collectibles. That and Haunted Halls and Temple Development. I could see someone spending a week just adding collectibles to any of one of those quests. They're kind of long.
Yeah, this is something that's going to also be done,
over time.
Over time. I'm sure there are some things that were just.
I've got half an hour before a meeting, and I'm in between projects. I'll go add some collectible notes somewhere.
Yeah, they got a lot of work out of that. So.
Yeah. Randomly, this actually provided. A lot of people were really happy about this, but there's also a little bit of not a lot of, but a little bit of controversy on this. So randomly generated weapons now generate either martial or caster effects on a given item, rather than crossing and mixing the two together. Most people I saw in this thread responding to this were really happy about this, but there are a few people, probably ones that have builds that are kind of a mix between the two, that were a little sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a case where you can't please everybody, unfortunately, on this one. So for a long time, we've been getting feedback that, oh my gosh, will you just stop dropping the caster stuff on my weapons? And so it's just, yeah, okay, let's do that. But there are people who actually benefit from those items. Not necessarily a huge group, but, you don't want to let anyone just get impacted by it, and these people will be. Although I think that the Caneth crafting system will offer a lot of opportunity there.
Because you could still mix there.
It should be okay. Yeah, I think you'll be okay. Yep.
I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Scepters are once again going to appear in randomly generated loot. I didn't realize they weren't actually part of.
I didn't either, actually, until I knew that. Yeah.
They will mostly be caster items, which would be appropriate. They're essentially, they're a club. I mean, that's what their stats are. I don't even think pen and paper differentiates them. But let's see. Insightful spell power can now rarely appear on randomly generated weapons, which I thought it was already, so I'm a little confused by that. Or maybe it's being more rarely? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I think I've seen it on gear more than weapons.
I definitely have insightful force power, and I've seen force and radiance and light.
I have the special radiance, yeah.
The secondary effect, isn't that the one that's usually the insightful?
Maybe.
Not.
I don't know. We'll see.
It's in the wiki.
Yeah.
Go to the wiki.
Some scaling effects have their benefits corrected, like if you are doing intelligence and charisma damage, it will do, or drain effects, it will do that instead of dexterity. Wisdom and Constitution drain effects will no longer drain strength. So there you go. Force spell power now grants spell power to untyped and physical magical damage in addition to force damage, and there was much rejoicing.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Canon's crafting gear has been updated to use new scaling effects that increase the power as items are upgraded. These items no longer use Canon's crafting. Canon's challenge gear has been updated to use new scaling effects. To increase in power as the items are upgraded, they no longer use Caneth crafting. Yeah, Caneth challenge, Caneth crafting. That's not easy to separate.
So the stuff from the challenges that you run in House Caneth, those items that you acquire, not the Forgotten Realms ones, just the Caneth ones, are gear that can be updated under the. Used to be able to use Caneth crafting to update them. That's no longer going to be the case. Instead, they're going to scale up and then have augment slots for their sort of top tiers. Big question we've received is, what about the ones I already have?
Mm-hmm.
They're staying the same.
They are staying the same. We cannot revision gear to that extent because we're looking at hundreds of recipes if we're to try to retrofit that for the new Caneth crafting system, especially because we want to move away from Caneth crafting for Caneth challenge gear. So that means that if you have a currently unupgraded Caneth challenge item and you use it and you want to upgrade it, you should do so now.
Yes. I think they're also, like, the new versions will have another colorless slot. I seem to remember seeing that somewhere, but I'm not positive on that.
Yep.
Here's a kind of a side question. And I'm not sure how much of the chair counts, but what are you guys' thoughts on having more challenges? It's been a while since we've done had a new challenge.
You know, it kind of hasn't because of things like, say, the anniversary dungeon, Night Revels.
That's true. We have,
You know, those are I think that the challenge tech has found really good use in sort of events and things like that. I think more so than as specific challenges as a system. I'm not saying we would never do another challenge pack. I just think that for the most part, when you look at the cost per benefit ratio as opposed to, say, doing a new raid or new quests and that,
Sure.
we're tending to side toward the quests and raid at this point. But the tech itself has proven invaluable for DDO, and that'll continue to be used for a long time to come.
I do really like it for the anniversary, the event stuff, because you can do such a wide range of levels. So it's good for everybody.
You mentioned Night Revels. Is Night Revels coming back this year?
Yes. And it's even going to have some new items. A couple, at least.
Cool.
Nice.
And a couple of new dungeons, I think, too.
A jack-o'-lantern orb? I'm holding out for a jack-o'-lantern orb.
I actually know the answer to this, but I can't
Or
tell
like a
you.
pumpkin gun,
Yeah.
a pumpkin rune arm,
A rune arm that
No
shoots
comment.
pumpkins? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
No comment.
or bats, or something. I don't-
Steel Star, if you're listening, Jerry, make sure Steel Star listens to this part. We're at about an hour and 2 minutes.
How about
Thank
a
you.
shuriken?
Thank you for the armor and rune arms, please.
Pumpkin shooting rune arm would be awesome.
I think a shuriken shaped like a Batman bat would be cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Batarang.
And they have, although then you're really merging the franchises
And
there. So
The DC Universe
Yeah.
franchise.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bonnie, I'm working for you.
let's see. The other thing.
Do you know what I want? Do you know what I want? And it's not going to happen, which is why I can say it. I want pumpkin and skull grenades for your creature companions,
Okay,
so that your pets can have little pumpkin heads.
Oh yeah.
that'd be fun. Yeah. Was there I'm trying to remember. Was there a new pet for Night Revels last year? I don't think there was.
Oh my
think
gosh,
so.
you're asking me impossible to answer questions.
Oh, I think the augments, those augments were the big new thing out of.
Yeah, there were.
And then the witch's hat and the broom.
Yeah,
Was it a
those
broom?
were. There was a broom.
And
Yeah, you
the
can make a
cloak?
witch's outfit. You could be.
Yeah, we really
I think
focused
they're all
on the.
cosmetics.
We really focused on the not huge stat benefit, but cosmetic and creative benefit on the last Night Revels item, and I think we'd probably trend toward that side for future years because it seemed to be pretty successful.
I think it was pretty popular. A lot of people were really into the cosmetics for that last year, and I think
I
it's a
like that
good way to go with the challenge. I mean, even the
Yeah.
anniversary dungeon, a lot of people were really having fun with the cosmetic features of what was there. So
Well,
It also
I think-
allows us to scale the reward tiers to be, for maybe a little bit more shorter term player. So
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And cookies,
It's nice
the cookies
flavor.
were useful out of there too. So
Mhm.
yeah, and the candy was kind of a fun thing as well.
Oh yeah, like I mean the cookies from the anniversary event and stuff like that. That stuff was great.
Except for
That
the
was
oatmeal
nice
raisin
flavor.
ones.
No, shut your mouth. Their oatmeal raisin is delicious.
So
there's-
largely, the point of Lamania this week was it's not our release candidate build, but it's pretty close. And because both our first and second Lamania previews were introductions, we had just added the tech to the core build itself for the most part. It was in a rougher state during our Lamania previews because we want to get it out, as soon as we can, right, to get public feedback. This third Lamania preview was really a polished preview, which was really everything's really starting to come together. We just have well, we had, because this was done this past week here, really put together those final pieces and do that final pass on things. We have QA looking at it and all that sort of thing. Any kind of final issues we need to deal with prior to releasing on the 13th. So that's why we had this third Lamania preview, is just to sort of give everyone a sense of where we are, also give people a chance to, in terms of previewing and testing things, see things in a more solid state, and really just kind of get a better sense of where we sit ahead of our September 13th planned release.
The other thing, so before we get too far off of the challenge thing, I had two thoughts. One is if we get I think we might already have a skull. If you had a skull orb, you could role play Hamlet. And I don't know if you can answer this, but is there any updates on the Mimic event?
No.
Festival?
The only updates would be that we have talked about it.
Okay.
There have been discussions and meetings, but at this point, it's still kind of...
You have to fix the loot system for it.
Yeah, we would
thing.
basically have to recreate an entire new loot system for the Mimicon, which is fine and probably needs to be done. It's just a matter of when we can actually do the work.
Yeah. Great event, though. Bring it back.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. Last two things. The Guild Airship Cell Swords Tavern amenity no longer grants plus 40% movement speed buff that was working in quests.
What?
Yeah. Boo. Everyone's real sad about that. Yeah.
Man.
There is. My understanding is there's a different amenity that provides you with a speed buff in public
Chronoscope.
areas. Yeah. The Cell Swords one was not supposed to get a speed buff at all, and it was lasting in dungeons, which is the problem.
Darn.
Yeah.
Because I'm slow enough already.
Yeah.
I need every speed I can get.
The other thing is the website Cannith Crafting Guide has been updated for the new Cannith Crafting as well.
Yeah, that was one of the big projects really I had this past week, is to publish our updated Cannith Crafting Guide. So if you've never used Cannith Crafting before, this is intended to be a short, quick way to get into it. If you have been using Cannith Crafting and in the coming week and a half or so have questions about how it's going to work, this aims to be a place where you can go for some answers.
Yep. Let's see. Bonus days, 20% XP, Heroic and Epic through Monday. Because it's a U.S. holiday, Labor Day. Which, for the third time in 10 years, I actually have off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
It's usually the theater I work at. Our load-in schedule is and it was this last week, which usually means there's actors on stage this weekend, which usually means we have things that we need to do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's how it always has worked. But this year, this show is much smaller and tighter, so we're not actually hitting the stage till Tuesday.
Awesome.
The other one, I often ended up working 4th of July too. I haven't worked the last two, but then I worked 7 of the 8 before that. So.
Yeah, I used to be a radio news reporter, in Indiana, and during that time, I had to cover the Indianapolis 500 every year. So for that entire close to decade-long duration, I never had a Memorial Day holiday.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've got, in my industry, holidays are generally often work days because they're doing festivals and stuff like that. Memorial Day and Labor Day have local festivals and all that kind of stuff. Civic Spoon is saying in the chat there's 2 skull orbs, the Golden Orb of Death and the
I
Mad
thought
Stone
so, but I didn't want to...
I thought there were, too.
But
yeah.
Look like you're holding an orb
yes.
looks like you're holding a book.
It looks like you're holding a skull.
Yeah.
It does look pretty good already. I could have sworn I was going to say something, and then I was like, well...
I was pretty sure the Mad Stone Skull.
Yeah.
The Golden Orb of Death I haven't seen before.
I like little things like, the bouquet of flowers you can buy from the DDO store, or the drowned priest torch, where you could cosmic those things. It gives you this little unique thing you could be running around with in your hands.
My Aunt Thelanis, my wizard, has glamored the 2 bouquets of flowers. So
yeah.
On either hand, he's running
one of
around
my characters.
Have you ever gone up to a random female character and knelt with the flowers?
No, that's a great idea though.
Kind of fun. Store news. Getting back on track. Through September 11th, you can get double bonus points or autos boxes or both. Hey, it's always fun.
It's great to have double bonus
Hey.
points and all of this wonderful stuff to buy with those points at the same time.
The sales through September 8th are 20% off of Shared Bank Storage, Character Bank Upgrades, Select Storage Bags, and Shared Bank Platinum. I noticed that the crafting storage was not on this list. Do you know if that... I didn't check to see either.
I don't know
if it is or not, but
yeah, I'd have to ask our DDO store team.
I mean, you can always check. If you're listening to this, and
But
just
I think that
open
was
the store
on
and
sale.
check. So.
That was on sale a couple weeks ago, I think.
It's
Like,
usually
last
on
time,
sale
the
with
shared
these.
Bank was the shared bank was on sale like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was on sale at the time, I think.
Yeah, it's the Store More Loot
That's true.
sale, which I mean, at this point, if you pay attention to the sales, you'll see that there is a very the sales are here's the sale and here's what's on sale for that, and it's very regular. It's not like you can say every 4 weeks. It's not there's a different progression, right? But you can figure out what the sales generally are and approximately how often they go. So
I saw Tolera working on some new ones, so I think we might be
Ooh.
getting some new ones here relatively soon.
that'll be fun.
Hmm.
Let's see. The freebie for the week: a Lesser Slayer count boost. One of those with the coupon code MORESLAY. No E. MORSLAY. How awesome is it to have the vanity codes back, Jerry?
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, it makes the world a much better place.
Yes.
Indeed. And that will bring us to community news. So the 204th Chronicle, DDO players, congratulations to them. On Monday, September 5th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, they're going to have their 100th episode. And I believe
Yay!
Cordovan and Bonnie will both be there for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there. I don't know why. For some reason, they wanted me on their show, so I'll be doing that.
I
Yeah.
think they just wanted you to come bring prizes.
Oh yeah. I'll do prizes.
but
Also,
You've been a guest several times on the show, though, so I think they
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
the guests.
no, it's an honor to do it for their 100th episode.
And I was telling Drac this. I think that makes them the third DDO podcast to hit 100 episods.
I also maybe have a little bit of news that I get to announce.
Ooh.
Exclusives for them. That's fun. Let's see. City discussed the question of whether to go for bravery bonus. Really good blog, actually, considering should you be doing bravery bonus or not. My short answer would be don't worry about it. If you can do it, great, do it. But don't stress out about it.
I agree.
You can
No
turn
is
it off
the
too.
answer. No is the answer. It just occasionally, like if it's like you'll benefit from smaller streaks as you're just running and running and running. But in general, don't hassle it. You will often get so much more XP not worrying about bravery bonus than you get from that benefit. IMO. Maybe your playstyle is different though.
I would say if you're going to run it on normal, turn it off so you don't lose it, right? You can pause it and then go run something on normal and then turn it back on and go run something on elite and not have lost your streak, which is a good XP management. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it's good management.
Once they added streak pausing, I just stopped thinking about bravery bonus because it no longer becomes this like, oh my gosh, I have to do it kind of thing.
There's plenty of XP
All
in the
three.
game. That's
Yes.
the big thing. See, the guild for the week. The Werecat Pack is a Cannith-based guild that used to be a static group and is now looking for people to join them. Level 40 guild, enjoys grouping and teamwork. The comment, which named boss is your nemesis?
Melissa, because I think she's trying to steal Eretricos as my demon Pitveen boyfriend.
I think you're right.
Pretty good answer.
The Abbot. Absolutely the Abbot.
Ash, do you have one that's your nemesis?
Oh, what's the one at the end of Temple of Elemental Evil?
Is it
Like
one?
someone-
Illinois,
She drives me crazy.
That's
Not the
she's
good one.
tough.
Let's see. Named boss is my nemesis. Can I pick the boneheads, the Klugjargs, out of Temple of Elemental
Oh.
Evil?
Yeah.
Sure.
Those guys
Sure.
are kind of annoying. Let's see, fansite news. We got a shout out for our episode with building basics from last week. It got pretty crunchy. I apologize for that for those who are not the crunchiest of folks. But if you want to learn a lot more about like really getting into how building works and the mechanics behind it and things to consider, it's a good episode for you. The Order of Secletica had a final review of his builds, 3 of his builds that he was doing. If you're a monk and you want to know some more, get some ideas about doing monk stuff, that's a good blog for you. DDO Gamer, Mark's Death. They managed to complete Mark of Death. Ginger Spice created a video showing how easy it is for a druid to get a high strength for Legendary Tempest Spine. Tactilicious and Craftalicious delved into the upcoming Kenneth crafting system. Enrique thinks about the general manager. And even note, finally met Jack. She got her
Congratulations.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's a great moment when you pull one of those.
Yeah.
Let's see. You also Cordovan previewed Kenneth Crafting on the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream.
Yep. And that was from the internal development build prior to even the Monia. So it's actually it was similar to what we would have on the Monia. So we had some downtime that day. And so I just popped in there and showed how to make an item, how to deconstruct an item, kind of just the basics of how it works.
Also, if you're looking for similar stuff to that too, Voodoo did a video a couple weeks ago. It was an earlier build, but kind of gets you through the basics and some of his initial reactions. Let's see. Blogs this week. DDO Players News had a poll. What are you most looking forward to with Update 32? I said Kenneth Crafting. Bonnie or Ash, what are you looking forward to the most?
I said
The content. The Slave Lord content.
Yeah.
I love new content. I mean, I'm totally gonna do Can of Crafting, but I'm really looking forward to the new content, and that's what I'm trying to avoid spoilers of. So
Sure.
I think
I'm excited about the new content too, and the new crafting system that comes in that as well. There's 2 great crafting systems coming, which is really exciting and challenging to figure your builds out with.
Mm-hmm.
DDO Players News also interviewed Trevor Willingham, who is going to be the new
Travis.
Travis?
Yes.
Yes.
Whoops.
That's also part of the reason why I'm excited about the new content.
Yeah, so Travis Willingham, sorry, Travis, and great little interview, about 40 minutes long. So a lot of fun to kind of hear where he's from and his experiences, some stuff he's working on, specifically Critical Role, which is...
If you just want to skip to the DDO part, I believe it's somewhere around the 27-minute mark. The first part is biographical, and it's really great.
Yeah.
But if all you want to hear is the DDO stuff, it's somewhere in the 27-minute range.
And you can cruise through it pretty fast. But great listen, great job for those guys. He's getting a lot of interviews, which is really great with some of the folks out there. DDO Gamer, we mentioned their Mark of Death. Let's see. Mickey's Delirium had a blog post about how to flag for Against the Demon Queen, which is I think actually the raid is Zwabi's Revenge. Against Demon Queen would be the pre-raid for it.
Fort of Laylot, visiting there.
Depending on how you're looking it up. But so if you want to know how to flag for that raid, she did a really nice job with that. And the Damsels of DDO had their 49th episode that just came out this morning, or late last night.
49?
Yep.
Holy cow.
They're almost to 50.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive for them. That means because they go every other week, so that means they've been going for about a year, because they started every week, and so they've been going for about a year and a half now.
Well,
right? So,
there was some period of time where they're doing like maybe 3 a month.
yeah.
So it gets a little strange when it comes to try to figure out the time. But it's been at least a year.
Yeah. So, and they're doing great group of ladies. A lot of fun to listen to them. They have a very good cross section of personalities that get along, which is fantastic. So they're a hoot to listen to. Dido Kasplat should be back this next Tuesday.
Cool.
And we'll be continuing our pseudo permadeath adventures.
So I heard that you are maybe down a person. Is that right? And if so, are you
Yeah.
looking for someone?
Possibly, yes.
Okay,
Are
you
you
should put a call
volunteering?
out to the audience there. No,
Oh.
well, maybe. I don't know. I could join you for a little bit, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. I'm
Yeah.
kind of on the fence about where we're going to go with that, partly because I think Lessa is going to have some stuff come up. She's not going to be able to keep going for much longer, and I might focus on doing some other stuff. I'm not really sure. So.
We can talk after the show. I've
Yeah.
got a suggestion for you.
Oh, good. Other gaming news. Daddy interviewed Lotro devs, one of whom is Cordovan. If you haven't heard, there's a lot more cross-pollinating on the, not so much the devs, like the actual dev working in the game side, but Jerry is currently the community manager for both games, and Severlin is currently the executive producer for both games. And I think, Are you guys both still on Asheron's call too?
Yes, as of right now, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that game's not really, you're not developing new content or anything like that. It's mostly just maintenance mode, I think.
Yep.
What they determine.
There's a one-time $10 fee to set up an account, and then you can just play both Asheron's Call 1 and 2 for free, just forever.
Which is pretty cool, if you are into that game. The reason I'm so there's a couple fun things out of here, and you can read the transcript or you can actually listen to it. There is a 2.5-year plan for Lotro, which is something that Severlin put out there, which is encouraging for them. I think it also is reflective of, we've heard that they are planning things out for DDO in terms of years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're already talking about an expansion, 15 months from now, potentially? So,
yeah, something like that. Yep.
The other thing that I thought was really kind of interesting out of this is there was talk about licensing agreements. And really the reason why I bring that up is because it's something that comes up in on the DDO forums with some regularity. People being concerned about license agreements, and same I believe is true for Lotro. Jerry actually was mentioning in the referencing in the interview that it's a topic of concern for folks because people are concerned that their game's going to go poof. But it's it's a part of business. Basically, the interview was saying that it's a part of business. It's a regular thing that a lot of games go through regularly, and generally speaking, there's not really a reason to be concerned about them.
I tend to think of it almost like similar in some ways to, say, music licensing systems that radio stations have to deal with. Even restaurants and bars and theaters, they have to pay fees to BMI and ASCAP and things like that. I mean, it's just part of the structure of the intellectual property business. And as much as it makes for fodder for, say, oh my God, things are doomed, or, legit concerns and whatever else, I mean, it's a wide spectrum of opinion on it. The process itself is really a business process. It's IP holders and their attorneys and all that getting into rooms and filling out the forms and figuring out, do any changes need to be made, and then going through, the contract negotiation process and all that. And the intention on that statement I made for Lord of the Rings Online was that in Lotro, it has historically been a very contentious subject. There was a Lotro blogger who back in the day was able to write up some things that really got this debate going. And so for a lot of the Lord of the Rings Online community, the license process has been a particularly heavy and strong and persistent debate on the forums there in particular. And so there's been a lot more demands of, where are we at? When are you going to tell us that the contract is signed? What does the contract mean? What's changed? What's new? What's not new? Is this going to happen? You have until X date in 2017, and what's happening today, and some of that kind of conversation that we get asked, and we really simply can't answer it because it is a business process involving, say, attorneys and executives and lawyers and things like that, and it's just not something that we're able to give you a running commentary on, almost like a reality TV show or something, which some of the debate tends to almost sometimes turn into on the forums there. So I think DDO is a little bit different from Lord of the Rings Online in that respect, even when it does come up, say, on the forums. I think the tone and tenor of that debate has been different between the two games over the years. The same's true for DDO, right? We have a license, and we work on that license, and lawyers sign things, and everyone's good, and hopefully he's happy. And that's exactly what's going on. So it's really never been an issue. The other thing that I guess I would say would be funny, except that it might be kind of an offensive thing to say. But the reason it would, one mildly amusing thing about the Lotro process is if you actually are involved in the process, and I should say I am not, that it's really been a non-issue for Lord of the Rings Online. It's always, I mean, it's basically been, you good? You good? Yep, okay.
Most, in my general experience,
and when all the work comes down to it,
Yeah.
that's really what it is. And so some of the teeth gnashing and heavy debate that's taken place over the years is really, more of a big issue for, say, the forum community in general than it is an actual sort of issue for the game's longevity itself.
in my general experience, I mean, there's a lot of things that are very similar. License agreements are ubiquitous. It's not just a gaming industry thing. And there's a lot of other things that are very, very similar. Union contracts, for example, have a similar thing. And I'm kind of projecting that the two are very similar. And I know one of the big things with union contracts is you don't generally see long-term union contracts. They're usually only 3 or 4 years. And the reason for that is it's not because there's concerns that that relationship is going to break down and need to end after that amount of time. It's more you want to revisit the things that are you want to revisit the contract every couple of years because things come up, things change. I mean, when we did the 10-year anniversary episode for DDO on DDOCast, I mean, I went through and listed a whole bunch of things that had changed in that amount of time, and like one of them, a major one, was Twitter. Twitter wasn't even around when DDO started, so that's a major change. So that's something that you would potentially need to address in licensing agreements. Is hey, there's this thing called social media now. How does that work? And what do we need to figure out going on that, right? So there's a lot of things that the world changes, and that's really why you end up having license agreements and looking at, oh man, we got a license agreement, but it's only going to last 2 years. No, relax. It's because the world changes so fast. You need to up those.
I don't want to minimize the concern that the honest, heartfelt concern that people in the Lord of the Rings Online community have had over the years regarding the license. So I really don't want to be too harsh there. I understand. Hey, ultimately, if the license agreement was not signed, then potentially, most likely, the game would end. I mean, that is true. That is a true fact. It's just a matter of how we can communicate that and when we can communicate that. Just doesn't fall in line with some of the demands that you see when the topic of licensing comes up in relation to sort of the future of the game.
Yeah. I would say my advice is don't get worried about license agreements until you get told to worry about them. That would be kind of my general thing. Because it's a pretty standard thing that you're going to have to deal with every couple of years. So, and I was really trying to think about it. Granted, I'm not big on the gaming world, but I don't recall ever hearing about a game that got closed because of license agreements failing. I'm sure there's some out there, but
it has happened. I can't think of right off the top of my head what a good example might be, though.
But I don't think of it as being a common problem, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not something that happens a lot. So it's a rarity.
I'm sure if WB's lawyers were listening, they would not be happy with me right now. But I would just say, typically the way it works is if the company is making money and the license holders are making money and both people want to continue to make money doing the thing that involves them to get together, then things tend to work out.
Yeah. It's a business thing, and generally, I'm just kind of shooting in the dark and guessing 90% of these license agreement discussions go very smoothly. And there's not even any kind of contention at all. It's just, hi, how we doing? Do we need to check in on anything? Let's go through the contract, make sure everything looks good. Has anything changed? Nope. Yes. We deal with it. Move on.
It really, as the IP change, you can't, IPs do change over time. I mean, just look at like the superhero franchises and all the stuff that's happened with them over the past decade. So really, these contract negotiations are a chance to take a look at the layout of the land and say, is there anything we need to address? and then address it if you have to, right?
Well,
So,
DDO I would presume, and you don't need to answer this at all, Jerry, but I would presume that there's a large part of the licensing agreement discussions would involve, hey, here's from Wizards of the Coast, here's what we're planning for D&D, right? Like,
actually, I don't know how much that really plays into it, to be honest. I think that's a separate thing. So,
it's certainly something that you guys discuss and kind of keep tabs on each other, but so there's some interesting things to work out with DDO and D&D, just from the standpoint that they are both ever evolving pieces of property, right? So, in any case, I think we've expanded on that more than we needed to. So let's talk about.
We're hung up on the fact. Okay, we're hung up on the fact that Wizards of the Coast refuses to put me into 5th edition, and I'm just putting my foot down until. No, I'm kidding.
So let's see. Our survey question for the week comes from Fuzzy Duck 81 on Thelanis. Which enemies do you particularly enjoy fighting, and why?
Dragons.
Dragons are fun. I gotta say, Vela was a little bit of a, the first time I fought Vela, I was like, ooh, dragon, and then you kind of start to learn it. It wasn't as dynamic of a dragon as you really wanted, and then they came out with new dragons, and I think they did a really good job with them. So, I like
the ones in Tor are still tough.
Yeah, they creamed us in DDOCast Black.
Yeah.
That's because they have giant
to that
friends.
last week. Yeah.
That was a little embarrassing. We got host. No, dragons I think are a great, just from the standpoint of they're fun to fight, and I think the newer ones in particular, they fight like you would expect a dragon to fight, right? So that's a good answer.
I like beholders.
Beholders are fun. Yeah,
they're fun. I said elves because I'm the person who goes into Memoirs of an Illusionary Larcener, and I choose killing the elves because they're elfiest elves of all the elfiest elves. I feel like that was made for me. So I just like elf killing.
What you really want is something like Framework, but for elves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because, I'll kill all the Minotaurs, but if they kind of look more like elves, that would be awesome. I could have killing all the elf song.
Well, isn't that what Menace of the Underdark's basically about?
Yes, that's why I like Menace of the Underdark so much. Kill all the elves, kill all the drow. It's good times.
This is not a specific. Well, it's kind of a specific set of monsters, but it's not like a specific monster. I like the dynamic raid bosses. So I think about like Lord of Blades, the Titans in Mark of Death, or not Mark of Death, Master Artificer. The ones that the raid bosses that really move around and have special attacks that you can, kind of avoid and react to. Those are the kind of ones I really like.
Yeah, Lord of Blades is one of the funnest bosses to fight.
Yeah, it's in this day and age, he's not that deadly compared to where he was before, but that was probably the most fun I've had fighting.
But when he goes into his whirlwind, still, it's like a great moment when you spot him kind of like rearing up to give a whirlwind, and you're like, oh my gosh! And visually, it's a great thing, and combat wise, it can still kind of wipe the floor with you. So it's good.
I actually ran it on Epic Elite, not that long ago, and some of the guys I was running with, who are friends, people I run with a lot, were giving me crap because it was Rain of Blades, he whirlwind, and like we don't need to raid with it. Like, yeah, but it's still fun to go through the motions, right, and react to that stuff. So that's what I like to do. With that, let's close out the show. Ash, anything you want to plug here?
Hopefully, I'll be returning to DDOCast Splat soon.
Yeah, that'd be nice. We could use some help, or at least some cannon fodder. Bonnie, anything you want to plug?
I'll plug. The main twitching I do is on twitch.tv/BonnieBew, and I do Ladies' Night. It's playing with a group of ladies on Argo every Thursday, starting at midnight Eastern, from Argonescent server, and I have fun with them. But it's not suitable for. It's not a family show. Just put that out there.
Fair enough.
Mature people probably shouldn't watch it ever.
Jerry,
Grandma's so disappointed in you.
Yes. I tell my family members to not check it out. Please don't. Please don't.
Jerry,
Don't
what
let
would
my
you like to
niece
plug?
ever click the link.
I've got a couple of things. First off, this Wednesday, noon Eastern, on twitch.tv/DDO stream, we're doing our Update 32 live stream preview. This is going to be me and a couple of the devs. Sev is actually not going to be around, but we do have some devs that are going to be with us. It's going to be 1 hour long, quick, brief, spoiler light overview of Update 32. Like you were saying, Bonnie, regarding the new content, we'll probably just stick to the first third of the 3 quests, if that even. And there will be time for Q&A, so noon to 1, twitch.tv/DDO stream. The other thing we're going to be releasing this next week is our named item guide, and that's going to have pics and descriptions of all the named items in Update 32, along with how the item upgrade system will work in Against the Slave Lords. So those are the 2 big bullet points. We're working on a producer's letter. We actually started work on it in earnest in terms of putting fingers to the keyboard last Thursday. So that should be coming out next couple of weeks. And that's what we got going on. Otherwise, I'm on Twitch every Wednesday and Friday at noon Eastern.
Awesome. So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks especially to the folks in the chat room for chiming in on our topics. And thanks for these folks here for joining me today. And thanks to all the contributors for DDOcast. Couldn't do it without them. And thanks to Turbine and Wizards for getting along and handling all the license agreement stuff. And
For their
making
lawyers
this game
getting
happen.
along.
Yeah. And thanks to Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag. There is swag if you like swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, or if you have a comment on this episode, or have a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us debate, or you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment. You can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. I am at DDOcast on Twitter. Let's see. Our closing tip for the week comes from Rothgo on Galenda. Play for fun first and play well second. But with a group, play your best. So with that, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to do all the crafting you need to do before the next update goes live.